this guy slept with this guy's wife. They come to the yard, they solve it. Then in the comments, people are like, hey, he messed with your wife and now it's just cool. Beat her back up.
You got the first female versus male.
Females will come in the yard, they're like, oh, I want to fight a man. And I'm like, no, you don't. That was our intro to the Koreans. A couple other guys out. Right.
My favorite is Death Sentence, and he does a thing. He goes, I am Death Sentence! And I'm going to end this fight in 2 seconds.
We had a more serious beef. They're fighting over $25, 2009. Well, the guy on the bottom stabs the other guy in the leg.
Oh, it's 15 time world champion Demetrious Johnson. You're listening to the MightyCast.
What's going on, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome to another episode of the MightyCast. Ladies and gentlemen, you might not know who this gentleman is unless you follow the Street Beef community. This guy's an absolute legend. Please help me welcome in our guest, Scarface. How you doing today, brother?
Man, I'm doing good. I just got called a legend by a legend. So, very excited.
Nice, man. Nice. And there's some people you want to get on camera real quick and shout them out. Your recorder and your boys. Go ahead and do that.
Elijah Esteban, come around real quick. So my son, Elijah, to the left. My homeboy, Esteban, to the right. Check out Elijah. He just started his pro boxing career. Man in the Mirror on Instagram. And Esteban's got a blooming Instagram and YouTube. Lord Esteban. Please check him out, guys.
Love that, ladies and gentlemen. Make sure you go follow us on Instagram and YouTube. Show them some love. Remember, it costs you absolutely nothing to give these guys some support and follow them. So shout out to your boys, and I wish them nothing but the best in their career. Okay, now, Scarface, I got introduced to you when I was streaming on Twitch and on YouTube, and somebody says, man, you should check out a thing called Street Beef. And I was like, Street Beef? What is Street Beef? And they said, oh, it's where people fight in the streets. They settle their beef. I'm like, okay. And I started watching it, and I was like, oh my God, this is absolutely amazing. Like, the entertainment that comes into Street Beef is amazing. What made you start Street Beef?
So I'll bore you with the origin story of Street Beefs.
Yes, please.
Clear back in 2008, I was kind of a street guy. That was my MO. I worked, but I did a little bit of personal training, but I knew a lot of people from the streets. I'd had a rough childhood. So the area that I lived in was one of the grittier sections of my town. And it happened by chance. I used to weightlift and spar in my backyard. My backyard was real enclosed with trees, and you couldn't really see it. So one day, two guys come to my porch, sweating and out of breath, like, yo, Face, we just fought. I want to fight this dude, but I don't want to go to jail. Can we fight in your backyard and you make sure it's all good? So I said, can y'all not just talk and sort this out? Right? And, they were aggressive with each other from the gate, like wanting to fight right there. So I said, listen, I'm going to let you come in my yard and fight. I'm going to supervise it. But you got to give me your word you're not going to leave here and kill each other. So they did. They go in my yard. They fight. This was one guy felt the other had snitched on him.
Okay.
So they fight. And believe it or not, they solved it. It was a great fight. It was a great fight. And, afterwards, they couldn't do nothing but shake each other's hand. They were both exhausted, out of breath. Okay. So boom, I didn't really think nothing of it. Oh my God. There we go. Hey, are we good? Sorry about that.
Music. Chat viewers, if you're wondering what Scarface is thinking of, his headphones are hooked up to the camera. Not excuse me, not the camera, but the laptop, and it's also hooked up to one of his kids' phones, and she keeps on playing R&B music, so that's why he's like, turn the R&B music off, damn it. Continue.
Hey, so anyways, we do this fight, and word spreads. It spreads quickly because these two guys are known, and I'm known in my area. So the next thing I know, about a week later, 2 females hit me up. Well, it's one female hit me up about another. I'm going to kill this bitch. Face, you've got to let me fight her. If not, I'm going to her house. I'm going to drag her out of the house and I'm going to fight her. And I said, well, look, don't do that. Come to me, let's talk. So my goal with these beefs at first was always to try to talk. It wasn't, hey, get in there and fight. So I try to talk, and I'm going to tell y'all, the female beefs are the worst. If you get a chance, go on Streetbeefs and look up female beef fight. You'll see what I'm talking about. But I let them fight. But this time, because of some of the threats they were making, my friend was like, yo, let's film this so we have a record of what happens here today. So I said, okay. So he filmed it because we didn't want either of them trying to press charges on them or sue us or any crazy thing. So we filmed it. They squashed the beef. We said, man, let's upload this. Let's upload it. So I hit the girl up. I said, do you mind if I upload this fight? And we did. And it got a couple thousand views. Now, this was 2008, the early days of YouTube. So that was, for a first upload, that was pretty good. I still didn't realize that we had something. And then people started coming constantly. Over the next couple of months, I think we saw 6 more beefs. And then I said, so we got something here. So we started filming them. And what happened was this. A crowd would show up for the beefs. And there'd be people in the crowd like, yo, can we just fight for sport? I just want to get some frustration out. So we started letting them do it. My mindset always early was safety of the fighter. I didn't want nobody dying in my backyard. So we safely and closely supervised it. But that's how it all began, is with those disputes.
Wow. Now, when the first one came to your house, like, how old were you? Like, it was 2008, so that was
I think I was 28. 28.
28. And how about the guys who came to the house to fight? Were they the same age or younger or older?
They were like 24, 25 maybe.
Okay.
I say this humbly. I had a good bit of respect in my community. And some of the younger guys would come to me when they started hearing about these beefs. They would just come to me and ask me, how should I handle this? I don't want to go to jail. I don't want any trouble. How should I handle this? So it just blossomed from there to where we were handling disputes both through fighting and through mediation.
What's going on, guys? This video is sponsored by GFUEL. Now, ladies and gentlemen, we all know GFUEL has amazing flavors for the energy formula. We're getting your caffeine along with the multivitamin, but now GFUEL has come out a brand new product. Boom! GFUEL Energy Plus Protein, caffeine and protein. You're gonna get 15 grams of whey protein along with 140 milligrams of caffeine. It's a perfect combination to take before you go to the gym. I enjoy taking protein and caffeine before I go to the gym. Caffeine is a great energy source. It's natural, and along with the protein, it's gonna help supplement your muscles and replenish the muscles and when you break them down. So if you want to give GFUEL, the brand new Energy Plus Protein, a try, all you got to do is go to gfuel.com. And when you do that, make sure you use my promo code MIGHTY. That'll help you save 20% on your complete order. They have some delicious flavors. They got cafe mocha, French vanilla latte, and they also have chocolate. If you guys out there and you love your caffeine and you love your damn coffee, look no further. Get the Energy Plus Protein GFUEL, brand new product. Don't wait. Go to gfuel.com. Promo code MIGHTY. Back to the content. Yeah, because that's what it seems like. It seems like you became the street mediator. And what gave you, why did people come to you? Like, what was it that gave you so much street cred? We were like, dude, we got to beef. We're going to go talk to Scarface and he's gonna help us settle it. Whether we're going to fight in his backyard or we're going to sit there and talk it out. Like, what was it that gave you the street cred that everybody came to you?
So I tell this story a lot. I don't know why I got kind of that title about me, but even when I was in jail back in the day, some of the inmates would come to me when they'd be arguing. Face, who's right? Who's right about this? And, this is when I was younger. And I would always try to mediate. I think, for one, I used to get into a lot of street fights. I also boxed in my youth, USA Boxing. And I'm kind of respected in that area that I do get into fights. But people know that I'm fair in my area. And I think they respected my opinion. So I think that's why they wanted to come to me,
Hey, you probably could have like a passive. So each time I watch you on Street Beef, you've always approached it in a fair, you're not biased towards the right or the left, right? You say, hey, you guys are going to shake hands, do your thing, and after everything's done, you're going to, move on and not going to fight afterwards. Now, how many Street Beefs events have you guys put on?
So I don't know the number of events, but we've been doing this for almost 17 years.
Damn.
Yeah. We've had, we counted our fights the last time, and we've had over 3,000 fights. So,
jeez.
Yeah, over 3,000 fights.
And now it's not just over in the East Coast. You have Pacific Northwest. You have one in California. You have them. Now, are these guys all, I don't want to say it's franchised, but are you guys all in cahoots with each other? Like, do you talk to the one in Pacific Northwest? I think that's Sasquatch Backyard. Correct me if I'm wrong. Or the Devil's or that's Sasquatch Backyard.
Scrapyard. It's called Scrapyard.
That's the Scrapyard.
Yeah.
Scrapyard. And then you have one that's called Devil's Backyard, right?
Well, ours, the original was called Satan's Backyard.
Satan's Backyard.
I'll tell you the story how we got that name in a minute. But yeah, Satan's Backyard is the original. We have Street Beefs West Coast. They go by their initials, SBWC. They're out in California, Nevada. And then we have the OG branch. We have another branch called Dirty South down in Texas. They're not as active. They they do it like once every 6 months. So now to answer your question about how I wanted to give these guys that were out in other states a place to solve beefs and a place to fight for those that couldn't travel all the way to Virginia. So in case of the Street Beefs West Coast, I selected two guys, Martin and Alex, who I knew were trustworthy, who I knew understood the goal and the attitude of Street Beefs. And I said, listen, I want you guys to run this branch for me out in the West Coast. I don't want any money from it. I don't want any proceeds. I just want you to run it the way that we've ran this one. So they started it. That was my first spin-off branch. Then Scrapyard with a gentleman named Steve, he had approached me and said, man, we need something out here near Seattle. We got a lot of violence and stuff here too. So I greenlit that. We communicate closely. And the understanding is for them to be under the Street Beefs moniker, they have to all go by the same guidelines as the main yard. Okay. They're their own branch. But if I was to see something out of place, something unsafe, something unfair, and I call one of those guys and say, look, this ain't okay, they'll fix it. We've actually had it happen. So that's basically how it works.
What was it that happened that you didn't agree with the moniker?
So there was just one example. The West Coast was having an issue with Scrapyard. Some of the main members of Scrapyard and West Coast were having an issue. They were kind of going back and forth. I won't get personal about the details, but basically I stepped in and did my best to mediate and at least keep it to where the main guys of those branches could get along and not be at each other's neck. And I just told everybody, listen, we got to get along. We're brothers, basically.
Okay. Well, I feel like after I've watched, I don't know how many Street Beef videos I've broken down. I'll have to say at least 100 of them. And one of my favorite things about it is the reffing, right? My good old friend Wolverine, I love him. He's got the swag. He goes, you know what we do? Scrap. And So where do you guys come up with the rules in Street Beef, right? Because there's some of the things that Wolverine's doing. Sometimes, if you ain't progressing, you ain't winning, and he'll stand you up. Talk to me about like where'd you guys come up with the rule set, or is there a rule set that you guys follow? Is it if it's a one championship? Is it UFC? Is it PFL, Bellator? What is it? Obviously, boxing's kind of straightforward, right? But with mixed martial arts, there's so much stuff that goes on, right?
Well,
I remember seeing somebody. Go ahead.
My bad. So with the MMA, we try to go by UFC rules, with a few exceptions. One being the blood rule that some people don't understand. Okay, these folks aren't blood tested. All right.
Yep.
So when somebody starts bleeding in the yard, it's not like MMA where you're tested before you go fight. I don't want somebody fighting in my backyard and getting a bloodborne illness. So when we see blood, we clean them up. We try to get it stopped. If we see it again, first sight of blood, we clean it up. If the blood persists, the fight's over. Okay. That's one rule that differs from the UFC. Overhead slams, I'm always really paranoid about, because one of our first beef fights was between a skinhead and a crip. And the skinhead,
skinhead and a crip.
Long, crazy story. But, and I pray this music don't turn back on. It was between a skinhead and a crip, and the skinhead picked the crip up, slammed him, knocked him out cold. This guy had blood coming out of his ear, his nose, his mouth. It was crazy. Scared me to death because I thought I was going to have somebody die in my yard. After that, I said, no head first slams. Okay. Meaning you can slam somebody, but if their head leads to the ground, I'm disqualifying. Okay.
Like a spike, like a tombstone spike.
Correct. So that's another thing we differ on. We recently, meaning about a year ago, we stopped knees to the head. They don't, in some amateur promotions, they don't allow that. And I just, these guys are fighting for beef or for sport. I don't want to risk some serious damage. I don't know if you remember, there was some guy in pro MMA that got a big dent put in his skull. I think it was from a knee or an elbow. So I see stuff like that and it worries me. I don't want our guys to get hurt. Other than that, as far as the progressing, that started because we used to only do 1 minute rounds. And I said, look, if we have a guy come in and he lays on top of another guy and doesn't progress for a minute, there's a round. So our mindset is, if you're not progressing or landing shots within a 15-second period, we're standing you up. So you got to show that you're progressing or landing shots or you get stood up. And that's why you'll see Wolverine basically saying, do something or I'm going to stand you.
Where did he get that nickname too, by the way, Wolverine?
He fought in Tough Man tournaments.
Okay.
And he won several titles in Tough Man. And when he would come in, he kind of did the Wolverine pose before he fought a lot.
Okay.
And he just kind of took on that nickname.
I love it, dude. He goes, what we do, scrap. I love it because when I'm watching it, there's sometimes when I watch it, you see somebody who's really good, right? I always tell people when I would watch Street Beef, I'm like, if you have some type of form of jiu-jitsu, and like you said, this all started from solving a beef, right? Now you have a lot more sports where a lot of people are like, hey, I'm amateur. I'm trying to get some work. I know recently you guys just had your first female fighter come all the way over from Korea and she fought a man. We'll get to that soon. But right now, when it comes to the rules, I'm sitting there, I'm like, okay, that guy has a full-blown heel hook. Now it makes sense why you guys stop it and not progress, because it's only 1 minute round and it's 3 rounds, correct?
Right. Now, let me say, it's actually 2 minute rounds now, but we just stuck with that need to progress, because even at 2 minutes, it's not like a 5 minute MMA round where a grappler can take his time, really work, and progress. If you do that again for a minute and 30, there goes a whole round of 2 guys just laying there, if that makes sense.
Gotcha. No, it makes total sense. For some people, I when I first started watching, I'm like, what the fuck is going on? I was like, guys, full-blown side control, and fucking ref stood up. I'm like, ref, stop doing it. And then I remember the ref's like, man, DJ gave me a lot of slack. And I'm like, then when you came and told me, and I was like, it makes sense. But a lot of people, my viewers, when they watch it, they're all watching, professional mixed martial arts. So I'm like, guys, it's 1 minute, 2 minutes. I mean, they want to solve the beef, or they want to keep the action going on in the fight. So it makes total sense. And shout out to you for stopping people when you start seeing blood, because a lot of people in the amateur days, in the very beginning of amateur days in Washington State, you wouldn't have to get blood work. You wouldn't have to get basically no medicals. And then now they force you to have a professional card, not as professional, an amateur card, get blood work done, because that's where all that bloodborne illness gets spread, is that you don't know if this guy has, Hep A, B, C, and then you punch him in the face, blood gets in your face, then you can get it. So good for you and doing it. Do you ever think there'll come a point in time in Street Beef's, career where you guys are like, hey guys, from now on, like if you guys, are you ever going to sanction it? What I mean by sanction it is like, hey, we have the state of Virginia on it. Everybody who fights, they have all their blood work done. They have the medical stuff done. Do you ever think there'll come a point in time where Street Beef will be sanctioned, where now a guy like Baby Hulk, Beach, Death Sentence, they'll have an amateur record where it'll go be recognized through Sherdog or MMA fighting, etc.?
So we've been approached many times. We've been approached many times from different people wanting to take it sanctioned. And my answer is always the same. Sanctioned orgs are a dime a dozen. I know of 15 of them in Virginia right now, 10 of which are closing their gates.
Oh, wow.
Street Beefs is a bigger name in the sense that I think we could do it successfully, but I'll never do it completely. And what I mean is this: I'm always going to keep the yard as it is, still operating, but I would be open to starting a sanctioned branch as well. So right now I got partnerships with a few guys. I've been working with Sean Merriman. We don't have a signed partnership, but I've been sending some guys out to his Lights Out promotion and trying to give that pipeline to our guys that want to progress in their career. But it would be nice to be able to have our own org right here where they could progress. And it is something that I've considered. We just haven't taken the steps on it yet, but it's definitely something that's a possibility for sure.
Gotcha, because I see a lot of the guys, like I said, Baby Hulk, I saw that he started in, I see a lot of guys come to Street Beef who train mixed martial arts and get a couple of fights underneath their belt as an amateur, and then you see some kind of go into another organization where it's like semi-amateur, or then they would go semi-pro, and they try their hand. So I was curious. I was like, man, I wonder if Street Beef will ever become an organization where it's like, hey, you want to fight in the yard? You got to have blood work done, and you also got to have an annual physical, kind of like what the amateurs get around here or even around the world. So I wanted to ask that question because it's massive. Like I'm sure you know how big your organization is and how many people you have, and your community is so big that I'm like, they can easily turn this into a sanctioned event. So these guys who are 9-0 in the yard, it will be looked at and sanctioned. People will basically look at that and say, okay, it's legit.
So I'll say this too, in regards to the sanctioning. And again, one day it's going to happen where we have a sanctioned arm of Street Beefs. It's only a matter of time, but you'd be shocked. A lot of these young men and women, they don't have a lot of money, and a lot of fighters, I'm sure at least a little bit. I mean, fighters sometimes don't have a lot of money to spend to get all the stuff they need. So I feel like if we started requiring blood work, physical, all this stuff, we probably would lose a chunk of our fighters. Now, we would gain that sanction stamp. And I just think we can do it both. I do. I think we can keep our underground backyard stuff going and get a sanctioned wing going. We actually got approached by somebody about 6 months ago who was really pushy. He was trying to get us to get it done, and he was just a little too pushy for me. But if the right situation comes along, I'm going to do it.
Gotcha. Now, how many of the fights nowadays are beef fights and sport fights? Because I feel like nowadays it's more I think the last beef fight that I saw on there was Trax from New York City fighting his old coworker. Now I see it's more sport. You know, the channel's favorite, my favorite is Death Sentence.
I am Death Sentence!
Yes! Because he has an anime and he's very, he comes out there and he brings it, right? So now what's more, how often is it more beef versus actual sport?
So the percentage actually, believe it or not, hasn't changed that much. Or excuse me, the percentage has changed. The number hasn't. When we first started, we were maybe solving 4 or 5 beefs a month, maybe 3 or 4. Okay. We still get those a lot of times. And I'm going to tell everybody this. A lot of times we don't announce all the details of a beef. And here's why. I've seen where we've put a beef out there. Hey, this guy slept with this guy's wife.
Yeah.
When they come to the yard, they solve it. Then in the comments, people are like, hey, he messed with your wife and now it's just cool. And then the beef gets stirred back up. Right? So, so I said, look, man, we got to stop putting some of these details out here because then the public keeps it going. Right?
Yeah.
So we still do have a couple beefs every month, but percentage-wise, it's definitely way more sporting fights. So usually what I do when we have a beef is I ask the people, are you concerned about the public knowing the details of this dispute? And then I explain to them, look, people may throw some of those details up in your face. Are you okay with that? They say yes. Then we put the details out. So there may be some fights you've watched that were beefs that we didn't really highlight that it was a beef.
I love that. He was like, oh, this guy slept with my wife. I'm going to beat his ass. They all fight and he gets his ass beat. And then the cop's like, he fucked your wife and he fucked you too. And I was like, so I can see what you mean. You can always keep the beef going because some of them are like, well, if, I'll fight you if I can sleep with your wife, right? Obviously going behind his back. There's a lot more to it, but I think that's smart you did that. But I find it absolutely hilarious because the internet never loses. Whatever happens, whatever you do, they're always going to bring it up and be like, yeah, you kicked the guy's ass, but he still banged your wife. So who really won, right?
Right.
Wow.
Right. Well, and we had a more serious beef where a guy, this guy was a friend of mine. He gets in a street fight and they're fighting over $25. This was back in 2009. Well, the guy on the bottom stabs the other guy in the leg, and he cuts his femoral
in a street
artery.
beef in the yard.
No. This
okay, in the street. Okay.
Yeah. So what happened was this: a guy that I knew gets in a street fight, and the guy he's fighting, he's on top of the guy, and the guy stabs him in the leg, cuts his femoral artery, he dies. He bleeds to death in 5 minutes. So then his brother, the other guy, gets found not guilty by self-defense. So his brother is calling this other guy out, dude, I want to fucking fight you. He's like, Face, I really want to kill him. I want to kill this guy, but I'll settle for beating his ass. And I let him come to the yard and fight. But the guy whose brother died, he beat the shit out of this dude. But it still wasn't over after. How could it be? He lost his brother, And that's just one of those rare cases where we just couldn't solve it,
Well, I'm shocked that the guy didn't go to jail for basically killing him because he cut him, right? He stabbed him. So yeah. I'm shocked that he didn't get thrown in jail afterwards. So that's just
he was on top. The guy who got stabbed was on top, and they painted him as the aggressor because he was owed money. So they gave this guy self-defense. Right.
Wow.
Right.
That is absolutely crazy. Absolutely crazy. Well, that's one of the things I love about Street Beef because you said, the lingo, the motto is that, hey, anybody can pull the trigger, put the guns down, glove up or shut up, and just solve it in the yard, right? Like if you have an honest dispute, $25 or a package of hot dogs, whatever it may be, you slept with his homeboy's wife, go to the scrapyard and solve the beef, and then let bygones be bygones. Walk out, shake hands, and go your own way. And that's one of the things that I love about Street Beef, right? Is because you're trying to be a mediator. And in Washington State, we have the mutual combat law, where if you and another person want to engage in mutual combat, nobody gets hurt. Excuse me, somebody does get hurt, but nobody goes to jail, essentially.
Right.
And I think that's what Street Beef. Nobody dies, absolutely. And so that's what I think Street Beef represents, which I actually enjoy watching, because sometimes, there are some shit that happen where there's going to be beef to beef. And when that happens, the only way to solve it is to hand-to-hand combat. And you've been able to basically put it in a safe environment to be able to watch these guys and oversee it and make sure nobody dies and gets injured. So I applaud you on that. Now, my next question is, in your mind, what are some of the athletes that come to, or the beef that, I don't want to say beef, what are some of the athletes that come there that you're like, wow, he's really good, he's going to go off and do something?
So Baby Hawk was one of them. Baby Hawk, he fought like a murderer's row of our best guys, and he dominated them. Beach right now does real well in AMI MMA. We got a guy named Big Smile, he was the number 1 ranked heavy in Virginia. He's pursuing a pro career now. He's doing real well. On the bot, there's guys I'm going to leave out. Reckless Rico signed with Anthony Pettis. And
oh, wow.
Yeah, Anthony Pettis signed him and another one of our guys named Memnon Warrior. Memnon fought pro fights, and I'm not sure what he's getting into these days, but I know Reckless Rico, he's out just fighting, winning pro fights, and he's won a bunch of grappling tournaments. I think he's a brown belt in jiu-jitsu now. But those guys, I think, can do real well. I mean, of course, Anthony Pettis thought it too. He signed them. So, yeah, we got some guys that came through that I really think are talented.
I mean, that's awesome that some of the guys who've come through Street Beef and be able to get a contract like Baby Hulk, and to be able to get signed by Anthony Pettis for his Anthony Pettis APFC, Anthony Pettis Fighting Championship. Because he's got a big organization that goes all around the world, and it's also streamed on Fight Pass. So that's awesome, man. That's what's up. Now, have there been any athletes that come there and you're just like, what the fuck is this guy doing?
There has. I'm not going to say no names. But listen, I'm going to tell you this, and I said this to my wife last night, as a matter of fact. I said, in the early days, I would see guys that weren't great fighters come into the yard wanting to fight for sport. And I would think that they knew they weren't a good fighter, that they just wanted to fight and have the experience. As time has wore on, I've started to realize that no, most of these guys think they can fight, even the guys that can't, And there's one gentleman, again, I'm not going to say a name, but everybody can put 2 and 2 together, who he's kind of blowing up on social media. He's never won a fight in our yard, never came close to winning a fight in our yard. And at first, I thought he was trolling. He gets on Insta and he talks about he's the greatest. He's going to be world champ. And the guy, his skills were a bit limited. So I'm watching him and I'm like, he's trolling. This guy's not serious. Then as time wore on, Esteban came to me and said, no, dude, he believes that shit. He believes it. And, guys like that, all you can do is kind of protect them from themselves, because he's came in and tried to call out some of our best fighters. And I'm like, no, we're not letting that happen. Okay. So I kind of keep him. That's one thing I'll pat myself on the back for. We try to do a good job of keeping the matchups fairly even. Now, there's always going to be mismatches. There's always going to be times where you think it's a good matchup and it's not. But we try to do our best to keep the matchups as even as possible.
Gotcha. And then we kind of cut out. I lost you a little bit. Were you talking about death sentence, or who were you talking about there?
So, yeah, I'm not going to say a name, but,
okay.
Don't
worry about it. It's okay. So I just want to make sure, one of our favorites to watch on the channel, on the channel is Death Sentence. Reason why is because he has an anime. And when I first saw him, everybody was like, dude, it's Izzy Adesanya. I was like, that's not Izzy. And he does a thing. He goes, I am Death Sentence. And I'm going to end this fight in 2 seconds. It's going to hurt.
I am Death Sentence! Static! Welcome to the end of your life. And I promise it's gonna hurt.
And now I follow him on Instagram, and he has a pretty big following, right? And I think for him to have the opportunity to just fight, it's in a safe environment. Sometimes he can't get hurt, and like I said, you just said earlier, you do a good job to matching up where somebody's not gonna blow him out the water. You're not gonna match him with Baby Hulk. You're not gonna match with Beach, right? You're gonna match with somebody who's gonna not be as aggressive, where he can have a little fun. Because at the end of the day, once again, he has no beef with anybody. If anything, he's out there having a good time and just trying to test his anime to see if he believes it, and that's about it. So he's one of our favorites to watch. Like, just for me, because
listen, the guy, if you get around him, his energy is undeniable. It's undeniable. He's likable, and that's why I will never let him be set up for failure. I will never let him be set up to be beat up or quote unquote humbled. I love having the guy around, so he hasn't won a fight yet, but, I think his day will come, because one thing about it, he does love to fight.
Yep, absolutely. And that's the thing. One day he will get a W. It might not be a street beef. It might be at a jiu-jitsu tournament. It might be in his backyard fighting somebody else. Who knows? But I think it's kind of amazing for you to be able to give him the opportunity to fight there and in a safe environment, right? Because a lot of people will be like, nope, you can't fight, you're not good enough, you need more training. But God, well, how do I know I need more training if you don't give me an opportunity just to see where I'm at? That makes sense.
Yeah, I kind of hate the gatekeeping that goes on in the fight community sometimes. I mean, look, I had somebody say, well, you let these inexperienced guys fight each other, they're going to kill each other. I said, well, look, if you're inexperienced, that means you're less skilled at violence, okay? So the fact is, 2 inexperienced guys fighting each other have a very highly unlikely chance of killing each other. It's the guys that know how to hurt you that you got to worry about. So that's our big thing, is keeping the guys that aren't as skilled with each other and keeping the skilled guys with each other. And, knock on wood, we've done a great job doing that so far.
I would say so for 17.
My bad. 3,000 fights, almost 17 years, and we've never had a life-altering injury, ever. We've had common fight injuries, broke nose, stuff like that, but we've never had a life-altering injury.
Yep, I was just going to say that out of 17 years, nobody has died on your canvas. Granted, typically when people die in mixed martial arts, it's more the lead up to the fight of like health concerns, bad weight cut, anything like that. Do you guys even do weigh-ins?
We don't. And that's
so it's perfect.
Thing.
I was going to say it's perfect because now you have people fighting at their natural weight, right? You're like, hey, what do you weigh? 165? You might look like 170. Okay, well, let's slide. You're going to fight this guy who's like 170. So everybody who's fighting in street beef is fighting at their natural weight. They're not dehydrated. They're not, stripping their body of all their natural vitamins. Now, don't get me wrong. If you have a beef fight and this motherfucker just came from 7-Eleven drinking a Slurpee and homeboy, caught him, was like, hey, we're going to scrap up, we're going to fight now. Now, when you do the street beef, is it all pre-organized, right? Like if for me and my producer, right? Let's say, he was running his mouth, pissing me off. And I was like, hey, Face, I want to fight my producer, Michael Wanzover.
3 in the morning. You could do it.
3 in the morning. Yep. You wake up.
I've had it happen. I've had it. If you go look on our channel, and I think it's age restricted, so you got to dig for it, but 2 females, 3 in the morning, one of them just beating on my door. Okay. So I open the door thinking I got beef myself. And this young lady is like, I'm sorry to wake you and your family up. This girl, we're going to fight right now. I don't want to go to jail, and I'm scared she's going to jump me. Please let us fight in your yard. So I got dressed, and it was raining out too. 3 o'clock in the morning, pouring down the rain. and these two women want to fight. And I suited up and I let them fight, because if we don't take the beefs when they're at the hottest, then what are we good for? I mean, if I make them wait till morning, they may kill each other by then.
So you wake up. So then it's spot on. So it's like, hey, I want to fight him now. And you guys, all right, let's go. Come on. Come in the backyard. Let's do it.
Yep. I mean, like I said, the 3 a.m. beef, now that was a rarity. They usually don't come like that. A lot of times I'll get hit up like an hour or two before the beef, and they'll be like, look, if you don't let us fight, we're going to fight in the street. And
gotcha.
I do whatever I need to do. I own a boxing gym now, so nowadays I'll open my gym up if I have to. Whatever I have to do to stop these people from hurting each other. And my son, who I introduced at the beginning of the show, last year had a beef.
Yep.
And my son knows. I told him, I said, look, people kill in the streets. Because you can fight, that's even more reason for you not to do it, because cowards will shoot you. Once they know you can fight, they're not going to fight you. So if you have a beef, I don't want you fighting in the street, bring it to the gym. So sure enough, my son calls me. He said, Dad, this kid, he won't leave me alone. They got into a tussle at the basketball court. This kid's a state wrestler. So they fight. My son, surprisingly, because my son's boxed all his life, he held his own in the wrestling. So we let him come to the gym and they fought. And
I love it.
Yeah.
And how old is your son?
He's 19. He's 19.
19. Well, I remember there was a beef that you had where one of your sons got jumped. I think it was by 5 or 6 dudes.
8.
And then there was only 8 dudes, excuse me. And there was only one guy who came through and he was like, I apologize. I didn't mean for it to happen. He was the only guy. Then I remember watching you guys all beat the living shit out of him. Did you guys ever find the other 7 guys?
So the main ringleader is in prison now for murder. He killed a 65-year-old man.
Wow.
These were the type of individuals we were dealing with. The main guy, I'll just say his first name's Trey. He's in prison right now. Murdered a 65-year-old man. Several of the other people that were involved are locked up for other crap. They were a bad group of dudes. A bad group.
Yeah.
And my son that got jumped, he's a fighter. We train him as well to box, and he broke the first kid's jaw that pounced on him. He managed to get that shot off. And then they just swarmed him and beat him up. But people said, well, why didn't you go first in the Shark Tank, or why did you do a Shark Tank? Well, let me answer that. First of all, if I had went first, I promise you, I was going to knock this kid out, and I didn't want him to be knocked out quickly. I wanted him to go through the flames like my son did. My son got beat, stomped, and kicked by 8 people. He got a fairer deal than what my son got. He didn't get jumped by a bunch of people at once. He got one at a time. Right? So we gave him more consideration than what my son got. We showed him love afterwards, and he's the only one out of the group that's doing okay right now. That's not out getting in trouble,
Yeah. I remember watching that, and I agree with you. When you did the Shark Tank, you guys were gloved up. He was in a safe environment. He had what was the rounds? 1 minute, 30 seconds? What did you give him?
I think it was 1 minute with each person. Yeah.
1 minute with each person. It was like 4 people. That was
4 people. Yep.
4 people. And, when your son got jumped with 8 people, they were stomping on him. There was no ringleader. There was a ringleader, but there's nobody who was looking out for your son's safety. That makes sense, right? Like, if you guys would have knocked him. Yeah, I remember. I saw the picture. It was fucked up. And, let's say you guys would have knocked out the guy who came to the gym. You probably say, okay, you got knocked out. Okay, get up. You got 3 more to go, and you keep on going. It's only 4 minutes. That jumping of 8 people getting stopped, your brain, the concussions, all that stuff, no gloves. That's like you said, that's how people die. People don't realize that. That's how people die in the streets, is that when you get jumped or you get hit hard and you get knocked out and your head hits the back of the concrete right there. That's you know, it could be brain aneurysm, you can get a massive concussion. So, you know, I applaud you for whooping his ass. And then afterwards you're like, hey, now everything's done. Once you come back here to train, and we'll get you off the streets and stop hanging out with all the dumb motherfuckers. Because the only place you're gonna end up doing stupid shit like that is in jail. Hence, the guy who killed the 65-year-old man, right?
Yep. And that's the thing. I think that he sees that our message is true because he's witnessed almost everybody that he was with that night is now in jail. Almost everybody. Yep. And, you know, you're right. Street fights, I tell my kids, I tell the guys at our gym all the time, a street fight, it can go anywhere. It can end with 6-8 people on you. It can end with a knife in your leg. It can end with you being shot. You know, and I tell the kids at the gym all the time, because you're learning to fight doesn't mean you suddenly go around fighting. That's your last resort, you know. There's people out here that won't fight, and they damn sure won't fight fair. So, you know, I always try to preach to avoid a street fight, even though when I was in my youth, I didn't. Do what I say, not what I did, right?
Yep. Well, I tell my kids, because they do jiu-jitsu, and I said, you guys know how to defend yourself. You guys know how to fight. But if you guys start something, like you go out and you seek the trouble, it don't matter if you win or lose. You're going to have the toughest fight with me when you come home, because I know how to fucking fight really, really good.
That's right.
But I would never be mad at you guys if you defend yourself, because my oldest, he's very good about, like, he doesn't look for drama, but drama finds him, and then he'll squash it. Like, we went on vacation one day, and my middle, he's very passive, kind of like myself, and these kids called him a pussy. And then Tyron goes, what do they call you? And then Maverick goes, they called me pussy. He goes, oh, not on my watch. And then Tyron got up, and he was about to walk over and start kicking some ass. I said, no. I was like, hey, shout out to you for wanting to go over there to defend your brother. But hey, they didn't put hands on your brother. They're only words. Don't worry about it. And that's like how my older son is. So I could see him as he gets older and he gets in high school. If somebody steps to him, it's going to be a very, very, very bad time for them. But as long as he defends himself, I'm not going to be mad. But if he goes out and start kicking people's ass, he's going to have to fight when he comes home. And he definitely going to lose that fucking fight.
But, you know, I'll just say, and we followed your career, man. You always seem like a character guy. And I'm sure that your kids are the same, you know. And I think it all starts with how you raise your children, you know.
Preach. Teach
them, you know, some morals, some honor, and how to treat people. And you're not going to be getting that call at 2:00 in the morning, you know. So
yes,
I'm sure you got some good ones, brother.
No, I think you saying that, it all starts at home. I used to go around and try to talk to a lot of troubled children. And at one point, you know, I just actually did one the other not too long ago, but I had an epiphany where it's like, I shouldn't be talking to the children. I should be talking to the parents. Right? Because when a kid, you know, why would a kid listen to me when, you know, I'm only in his life for maybe 45 to an hour? Then he goes home, and then he's at his house, and the dad and the mom aren't paying him any attention. They're calling him a piece of shit. They're not really giving him the attention he needs, or the love that he needs, or the gratification, or whatever it may be. So for me, it's like you said, it all starts at home. If I raise good human beings, good children, to respect the elders, to be kind to others, then you're right. There shouldn't be no ass kicking that my kids are doing. Only the ass kicking they should be doing is if somebody steps to them. But if I'm telling my kids they're a piece of shit, they're good for nothing, you're worthless, when they go out in the world, they're going to say the same stuff to the other people. So it really starts at home. So I applaud you for bringing it up, because a lot of people, they don't want to take responsibilities for what their children do out and about. Like, for me, I'm not out there being an asshole. I'm not out there disrespecting people. If anything, I'm way too passive. I'm way too nice to people, because I don't want to. I want to live my life through peace, and I want to spread peace. So,
I think,
when I heard that about your son,
I can say that having kids has been the most rewarding thing in my life. You know, I got into trouble when I was a young man. I was at a boxing academy in my early days, and then I ended up going off the deep end, getting in trouble, so on and so forth, because I didn't have parental figures. And When I had my children and I was able to impact them and put my stamp on how they were going to turn out, nothing's more rewarding than seeing that take place and seeing it work. But, even further, and I'm sure you've seen this with your skill set, just the kids at the gym. We see a lot of young guys come through the gym. And I told my guy Esteban the other day, I said, take care. You don't realize just how much these kids are paying attention to you. They are watching everything you do, and you're teaching them even when you don't realize it. So I do my best to carry myself with honor every chance I can,
Yeah, I love that. Now, Esteban, tell me about this. Like, he seems like he's your right-hand man. Esteban, tell me about him. What's the relationship? He's not your son, right?
No, Esteban, it's so funny because just a video today, we had Gideon, the creator, come out, and we sparred with him, and people were calling Esteban my son. He's not. He's an example like I just talked about. So about 6 years ago, I was going to an MMA gym, and Streetbeefs was big then, but it was still growing. This was right after our New York Times documentary came out. If you haven't seen that, it's called Guns to Gloves. Check it out. So I see Esteban at this gym, and I'm the type to just kind of observe people. And I picked up quickly. I said, this is a smart, hardworking, honorable young man. So I just sat back and I observed him, and I felt like he could be an asset to what we do. So I came up and I offered him a small job at first, just to kind of see what his work ethic was like. And immediately I watched this kid just go above and beyond. He's just a worker. He's a man of his word. And he moved up my ranks quickly. I trust him with everything. I would literally trust him with my life. And I can tell you, you're not going to meet a more honorable man of his word than Esteban. That's the truth. He did MMA at first, and he was what we call an MMA snob. And what I mean by that is this. I know you've met the type, guys that train MMA that just automatically think they know more and are a better fighter than everybody on earth. And, there was a few of those at the gym we used to go to. Esteban was never quite like that, but he kind of looked down on boxing and stuff. So I converted him over to boxing. He loves it now, but Esteban, he still can grapple and all that stuff. He still watches the sport. He loves to watch your fights. But now he's big into boxing. He just did his big pro boxing debut. Did great in that. So I'm happy to have him along.
Love it. Yeah, I always see him in all the videos. I see like he's kind of like running and coordinating everything, and also repping. I saw he got in the Shark Tank 2 piece up homeboy who was in the gang fight with your son. So I was like, man, I don't know if that's his son, but he seems very close to Scar. So I was like, I'm gonna ask him about that. Okay, all right, a couple more. So let's talk about, you recently just had the very first out of 17 years of Street Beef. You got the first female versus male, and she did very well. She ended up winning the fight. First off, it's crazy that she traveled all the way from Korea to take this match at Street Beef, right?
So let me walk me. Go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, that's it. Yeah, go ahead. Walk me through how all this came up.
So this group of Koreans that have came over, we had another gentleman. He's their coach. He hit me up through email and said, hey, I've got a team from Korea that I want to bring to fight in your yard. I said, okay, great. We've had people from Australia, Germany, the UK. So I didn't think a lot of it. It was cool, but
yeah.
So he shows up, and the first day he's like, he's got this huge Korean. This guy's just gigantic. And he's like, hey, this guy wants to fight. I said, how experienced is he? He said, oh, very experienced. Now, there's a language barrier. They only speak broken English. So I said, okay, very experienced. How experienced? Well, turns out this guy fought Mirko Cro Cop for
shit.
Yeah. He fought Mirko Cro Cop. He beat Chris Barnett. He beat him twice. He's like, you Google him, this guy's just got a murderer's row of people he's fought. So he comes to my yard, and I'm like, okay, they said he's very experienced. I don't know what that means, but I'm going to take one of our guys that's had a few fights. And he just walked through him. Like, he just, I mean, it was ugly, you know.
Yeah.
So that was our intro to the Koreans. So they put a couple other guys out. Right. So they put a couple other guys out that day. They all kicked ass, varying skill levels. So they love it. They're like, dude, you guys are rock stars over in Korea. Everybody loves Streetbeefs, okay? So they've been coming back every month, okay? So they have this young lady with them. And they kept trying to get her a fight, and the female fights are harder to get, okay? They're just...
Of course.
We had a young lady named Fierce Honey. She was really good. She's a high-ranked amateur now. She's really kicking butt. Shout out to her. She would have been a good matchup for this young lady, but she couldn't make it. So the girl came this last week, and the coach comes up and is like, he's such a nice guy, first of all. They're always bowing and just really respectful. And he's like, please, can you get her a fight? And I said, Coach, there's no females here today. So I walk off to run the fights, and Esteban comes, and he's like, the coach is asking if she can fight a guy. And I said, no. I said, you know that I'm not going to let that happen. It's not going to happen. And I've been asked that. You just don't know. Females will come in the yard. They're like, oh, I want to fight a man. And I'm like, no, you don't. You think you do, but there's a reason.
I love that. You know.
There's male and female. I don't want to sound like I'm being sexist, but there's a reason the sexes are separated for martial arts. Not that there's not a female that can't beat a male, as we see, but it's rare. So
yes.
Long story short, Esteban brings the coach over, and the coach is just begging me. So I said, Esteban, you got to get her a male that has no experience, that's a newcomer, and we'll let her fight. So he brought me a couple options, and finally, the one young man, he had never had a fight before. He had just started training. I said, okay. I said, we'll give it a try. I said, but let her know if I see any trouble, I'm stopping this fight. And I'm not going to lie. If you watch the fight at first, he kind of got her like in a version of a guillotine almost. Yep. And I was a little more of a headlock, but I was a little worried, but she fought out of it and she won. And dude, in all the years we've been doing fights, I have never heard the yard that loud ever. It was like an earthquake. People were just cheering. Greatest thing ever.
Wow. Yeah, I actually just watched that fight and broke it down, and I was like, here we go. Because I agree with you. I think when it comes to hand-to-hand combat sports, I think there's a reason why there's a male league and there's a female league. And then even in jiu-jitsu, at like the IBJJF level, there's a male league and a female league. Even I think ADCC, sometimes you might see, it's very rare. We're going to see Craig Jones versus Gabby Garcia. Gabby Garcia, she's a fucking monster.
Yeah.
Yeah, she's an absolute monster. I think she's got more muscle than Craig Jones. So it's very rare you see it. And it's not that like girls can't beat up guys, but we've seen videos of like Clarissa Shield when she spars a man. Yeah. And it's like, and it's like, dude, like
he wasn't even a high level guy,
He wasn't high level, but just the sheer muscle and the energy he could generate, like her body wasn't designed to absorb that type of energy from a male like that. So that's like, I agree with you. I'm 100%, but it was kind of cool to see that happened, and I'm glad she won. And it's kind of cool. I love what you said. This is how we got introduced to the Koreans. They come over here. I'm curious. Do you know that guy's name that fought Crow Cop?
Oh, I don't. I can find it out. Yeah, here we go. Wow, I got you on here pretty easily because I Googled Mirko and I looked up his fights and I found the guy. I'm going to tell you real quick. They fought, and I think he took Crow Cop all the way. I think he took him the full fight, Wow. 1 second. But the guy is just a really tough dude. My bad. 1 second here.
You're good. Well, I'm curious, like how often do like high level pro fighters try to sneak through there? right? It's like, oh, it's my first fight. And he's like 28, right? And he's like, I'm not in a professional. I'm not in any like big organization like One or UFC or PFL, Bellator, or whatever it may be, or Ryzen. But I wonder how people sneak in. I'm like, oh yeah, I don't know how to fight. Let me just fight. Let me fight someone who
We've
sucks.
actually not had him. His name's Hyung Man Young. Hyung
I thought you were gonna say
Man Young.
I never heard of. I thought you were gonna say Hung Man Choi, and I was like, holy shit.
Yeah. Oh, I know what you're talking about. But we've never had somebody real high level attempt to lie. And the reason is I give a speech at matchups every time. And the speech is simple. If you lie about your background, if I even think you lied, I'm going to stop the fight mid-fight and I'm going to kick you out of my yard. So we don't run into that a lot. The worst cases we run into is guys that maybe have a couple amateur fights that they're not completely honest about, but the pros kind of know not to lie to us. We had a guy who did an exhibition who he had 50 pro MMA matches in his youth, 50 of them. And
damn.
He had a decent record too. I think he won like 36, 37 of them.
Damn.
But a dude named P.A. Hitman. And he had retired like 12 years before that, and he had a bunch of injuries. So I said, look, you can come do a couple exhibitions. That's fine, just to stay fresh. It's no different than sparring. We monitor it closely. So he came. Well, I'm going to tell you two stories real quick. P.A. Hitman had one fight versus a guy that I boxed named Dad Bod. Dad Bod had no pro fights. He shattered P.A. Hitman's orbital bone. And
damn.
It just goes to show that the pro resume versus somebody non-pro don't always tell the story. Usually it will.
Yep.
Okay? We had another guy named Steve Vukosa. We call him Candyman. This guy was James Toney's sparring partner. And if you look at the sparring, he used to put it on Tony. He was 17-2 as a professional boxer. He came to our yard and got knocked out in 1 minute. Knocked out cold.
Wow.
By a guy who had never had an amateur fight. So,
damn.
Now listen, is that something that's going to happen all the time? Of course not. Experience and training does matter. But there is those few ringers out there that may not have all the training and experience, but just got that natural ability.
Yeah, and like you said, and when it comes to boxing, everybody has a puncher's chance, right?
That's right.
That's what I love about jiu-jitsu. Jiu-jitsu, you have to have some type of form of curriculum. Like if you grab someone who's never grappled before, and it's like, what is going on? They don't know what to do.
Even
and
if
that's
they're
another
big
thing I was
and
gonna
powerful, right? Doesn't matter.
Yep, absolutely. Absolutely. That's why my kids are doing jiu-jitsu now. And then if they want to fight and box, I can teach them how to box, understand the void, the distance, how to feint and move and have good rhythm. I feel like that's a lot easier to teach somebody how to, if I had to take if I had to choose 10 years of grappling or 10 years of boxing, I'll take 10 years of grappling. In a fight, like in a street fight, I'll take 10 years of grappling instead of 10 years of boxing. Because typically the fights always end up on the ground if it goes to the ground. Granted, the fight started on the feet, but you could butt scoot to somebody and start grappling them unless they pull out a gun and shoot you. Okay, now this is another thing that I love about Street Beef, the nicknames. Okay, right. The nicknames are probably like one of my favorite because sometimes, you have just weird ass nicknames that come up. Are there any of them that are your favorite that just come up in your mind?
So Dad Bod, I thought was a funny nickname. We had one dude called the male porn star. I don't, we've had some crazy ones, there's a few like the cool ones like Memnon Warrior.
Yep.
A bunch of them I like. A lot of those nicknames I gave. And
okay.
Yeah. So just not all of them. But a lot of, especially in the early days, our first 5 years, I gave every single nickname. And the reason we started doing nicknames is simple. There was people that were getting fired from their jobs for fighting for us. There was people that were getting their probation violated. There was people that were just running into issues. by coming and fighting at the yard. So we're like, look, we're never going to say your name. We'll just use a nickname every time.
And got it.
Then it became part of our signature. Hey, everybody's got a nickname. And yeah, I mean, we've got some wacky ones, and I think that's part of. I had somebody comment the other day. They said, man, I thought Streetbeefs was getting too serious with a lot of AMI fighters coming, etc. He said, but then every once in a while, I'll just see some pure wackiness in the yard, and it lets me know that it's still Streetbeefs, So I want to walk that line between the funny aspect of it and the wacky aspect, and some serious fighters,
Yeah, well, like I said, that's why I'm shocked that you guys haven't gone to the sanctioned part, because you have a lot of guys who come there. They get, Asian Sensation. He was your champion before.
Yep.
I've seen a lot of his fights, and boy, I feel like he is an amateur fighter. Like, he should be fighting amateur, right? Where it's
he does. He does.
And I can tell he does. I'm like, okay, so like Baby Hulk, he does. Beach, he does. So you see a lot of those guys who are like, I train 5 days a week. Where you remember I don't need to tell you. Do you remember? But from my memory, when I first got introduced to Street Beef, it was like, hey, he slept with my mom. I want to beat his ass. These guys have no experience whatsoever. To where now you jump forward 17 years, people are coming around from Korea, UK, Germany, all around the world to come, fight at the scrapyard. So I think people who've been following the channel for the very beginning in the infancy stage to now, they're like, holy shit, is this a sanctioned lead? Is this an organization? Like, when's the pay-per-view dropping?
Right. I remember the time period, like it was right around year 3 when we first started, like it started to transition from guys just kind of swinging to we started to see some skill, and we started to see some guys that had some training. And that's kind of when I knew. I said, look, we've got something real big here, but I made it a vow of mine back then. I said, I'm never going to let the everyday Joes get left out. There's always going to be a place for them too. So we make it a point when we do matchups to find everybody's background and make sure that they get matched up accordingly. That way, if you don't have a lot of training, you still can come get a good fight at Streetbeefs.
I love that. Now, before I let you go, Michael, the producer, is there anything you got for our boy?
Yeah, first thing I wanted to say, just thank you for the entertainment that you have provided us. We love Street Beef, one of the staples of our channel. And I just want to say, move over Dana White. This is the best promoter in combat sports right now. We're talking to him.
Thank you.
But being the best promoter in combat sports, I have an interesting question for you. If Demetrious Johnson approaches you and he's like, hey, I want to do a Street Beef, what opponent currently on the Street Beef roster would you look at to match him up with?
You're a 135 guy, right?
Yeah, 145, 150.
145, 150. I would probably put you against our new champ that just beat Sensation, Micah. Or I would give Sensation a shot. But I think with your resume, the guy I mentioned, PA Hitman, would be more likely. Now, he's an older gentleman, but I've
seen him fight. I saw him fight. I broke it down. He had homeboy in a heel hook. He was like, I was like, oh, that's a heel hook, and they're amateur. Why is he doing it? I've seen him fight before.
Yeah, he would probably be my choice just because of the experience. I would feel bad matching somebody that didn't have a resume like yours. Like, dude, listen, I know you had to have heard it. I feel like you the GOAT of MMA. Your resume speaks for itself. So I'll be damned if I'm going to bring you in and match you with somebody that don't at least have some skill.
I appreciate that, man. I appreciate that. See, Michael, this is why me and him are going to have a beef. He's always trying to get some kind of conflict going on and have me fight somebody. He's an instigator. Big instigator.
Hey, well, listen, man. We would love to have you at least come, maybe watch an event. And when we have big guys come, like Jens Pulver came years back, and he sparred with our main guys afterward. Just flow sparring, just moving around. Something like that would, the guys would go crazy. So if we could ever make it happen, I know you and I talk. You got some red tape you got to get through. But if it's ever a possibility, we would love to have you.
Yep, that's the plan. Michael, he wants to, we're talking about it. He goes, I think it would be dope. And I was like, well, we got to get through some red tape to make sure we don't get in trouble going over there and playing around. So, and I think it'd be fun, right? That's one of the things I've always wanted to do at the end of my career, right? Because I've always trained at my gym. I never really branched out. And then my first branching out was when I went to Arizona to train with Henry Cejudo. Now I've trained with Aljamain Sterling. And then now I'm hoping to train with more guys in Vegas, but next time I'm in Virginia, in that area, I got to come through and bring my producer just to create content and just vibe out, essentially.
Please do, bro. Like, I'm serious. We'd love to have you. We'll give you the VIP treatment for sure.
we got to get death sentence on the MightyCast eventually.
If you guys ever want to bring a fighter on and need to know how to reach them, just hit me up. You got my number, and I'll make sure you can get a hold of them.
I appreciate that. Now, Michael, do you have anything left for our guests for Scar?
Yeah, I guess I'd say the final question. I know it's hard to just pick one, but is there one street beef that you look back at like, man, this one was probably my favorite? And I'm speaking more the fight itself, not necessarily it did the best on YouTube. Just while you were watching it, you're like, man, this might be my favorite street beef of all time.
There's two. I'll run through them very quickly. Unfortunately, the one, I always name this, and I forget the fighters' names. There was two Hispanic fighters that came up from North Carolina. They were gang members, and they had a beef with each other. It was a gang beef. They fought. Their corners were just at each other's neck, and it was a raucous event. People were screaming, yelling. These guys fought to a clear draw. They were both bloodied up, and the energy was just amazing. Great fight. The second one was one I mentioned earlier when the skinhead fought the Crip.
The fucking slam.
Yeah, it was a good fight till it wasn't. The skinhead finally picked dude up and slammed him head first and knocked him out cold. But just the drama that led up to it, and the guys just looked so different. It was must-see TV. 100%.
Oh man, I bet you had goosebumps. You're like, oh shit, skinhead versus Crip. Here we go.
Yeah. Hey, and
let's go.
That was one of the ones YouTube didn't like. They age restricted it.
Yeah. Well, I remember there was a point in time in YouTube where it's like you could put anything on YouTube. There was no age restriction whatsoever. Now it's like, there's been a couple of times where I'll break down the video of street beef and they're like, oh, you can't do it. And I'm like, this is mixed martial arts.
Right.
These guys are fighting in the yard. There's a rep there. There's time. There's medical people there. This is not like, your mama pop's, barbecue that went south. This is a legit
sport
organization. It's a sport. It's an absolute sport. And anybody says, oh no, it's not. And I was like, this is a sport. There's a ref there. So there's somebody there. Keep an eye. And then you also have you walking outside the cage, make sure everything's good. So
it's not just two guys going at it at the corner store. And
exactly.
I will say YouTube's been very, very gracious and cool with us. And I think it's because they see that we're trying to do something good, and we got medical personnel on standby. So we feel good about what we're doing.
Hey, I love what you're doing. It's one of my favorite things. It's one of the channel's favorite, all the community. Scar, thank you so much for taking the time out of your day to come on to MightyCast. This is your opportunity to let people know where they can find you and what you got coming up next, brother.
Hey, Mighty, thank you for having me. Listen, brother, as usual, you can look me up, Scarface_Streetbeefs on Instagram. I'm not a big social media guy personally, but you can find Street Beefs. Just type in Street Beefs. It's one word, Street Beefs. There's nothing after. That's the main branch. On Insta, same thing. It says Street Beefs Official. Make sure you check us out. If you want to sign up, join our Facebook group. We got 50,000 members. Thanks to everybody that supports us. Mighty, thank you for supporting us, man. It's nice to know that the legit MMA community shows us some love.
Absolutely. Now, ladies and gentlemen, if you enjoyed this podcast, make sure you leave a like, subscribe. Also, hit the bell to know when we drop another one. And make sure you do yourself a favor. Go over to Street Beef on YouTube and subscribe and watch all other beautiful fights they have in a long catalog, and grab a beer because you're going to have a good time watching it. I'm your host, Demetrious Johnson. That is our guest, Scar. My co-host, Michael Wanzober. We will see you guys at the next one. What's going on, guys? Give you a big heads up. Mighty merch is dropping right now. Season 1 has just dropped. All you got to do is go to the description below. It is shopmighty.com. We have delivered and we listen to the community. You guys have been begging, Mighty, please give us a Void shirt, and we have delivered the Void shirt. And we also got Mighty Cap, and we also have the clean dingaling, just plain Mighty shirt, and we have some Mighty sweatshirts and the Void sweatshirt as well. So if you guys want to step up your swag game of season 1 of the Mighty merch that's being dropped, go to shopmighty.com or check the link in the description below to get your brand new Mighty merch season 1. Boom! What's going on, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome to the Mighty recap, and we just had an amazing guest on here, Scar, aka Scarface. He is pretty much the creator of Street Beef, which is one of my favorite things to break down in the channel. And the first thing that comes to mind is that, damn, that shit's been going on for 17 years. 17 years, not one death. Obviously, there's been the broken bones and all that stuff. And amazing athletes have come across there to settle their beef. Even, you know, tracks, New York City. He's fought multiple times under that banner, and I love how the beginning of Street Beef started, where people had beef. They came to Scar to go in his backyard and settle the beef. Nobody got injured, and his big motto: put the guns, knives down, glove up or shut up. And I loved it. Absolutely amazing guest, and just a story about how it started from the very beginning, and he recognized that they had something. Now it's a brand. I mean, they have over 4 million subscribers on YouTube. So many different characters. Death Sentence being one of my favorite. Baby Hulk Beach, Esteban, the Iraqi Assassin, the Myanmar Warrior. So many great guys. Little Mac. I mean, the list just goes on. I mean, yeah.
And I'd say it's a lesson to a lot of promoters out there. Like, as much as I said, move over Dana White. Like, I am serious in the sense of what Street Beefs does so well is they tell a story and they make you invested immediately. Like, you don't even know these guys, but the one you just did with the jewelers, right?
Your mother, your father, bro. I can't wait to crack your face open, you bitch.
This motherfucker, he worked for me and he stole my business, and then he does it all himself. Like, you immediately know the story. You get these little interviews, and then when they fight, you're like more invested in that than some random shitty UFC Apex, fight that you don't even know. 2 guys getting paid 12 and 12. Like, I think that is something that Street Beef does so well, and I actually think other promotions can learn from it. I love the stories, I love the characters, and you could tell when we talk to Scarface, him being their leader, it makes sense, the success that they've had.
Well, I think the biggest thing too, like that one you just referenced to, Tracks. I've watched him on YouTube and see him talk about, watches and all that stuff. And that's where I gain some of my knowledge when it comes to Rolex watches, APs, etc. And like you said, that story before they fought, you get invested because a lot of us have been wronged in life where somebody did X, Y, and Z, went behind our back and try to claim it for themselves. So for us to hear his story right before they fight, we're like, oh, this guy done wronged this motherfucker. He's about to get it in. And then we watch him fight. You're invested. So I agree with you because a lot of times there's so many athletes under an organization. Some stories we get invested in, some stories we don't. Or sometimes the organization doesn't have the opportunity to tell somebody's story, right? And I think I agree with you. That's something that Street Beef does very well. Like even Death Sentence, right? We're so invested in him because, one, he's hilarious, right? And he tries, and a lot of people enjoy him. And I follow him on Instagram, and he has great content. He goes to the club. He had a great Father's Day. I saw the picture that he posted with his dad, and all his friends support him. Another cool thing that that came up about Street Beef talking to Scar was how he's had multiple opportunities to be sanctioned and approached by probably investors, other people who want to take Street Beef and bring it to a different organization. And for him to keep his word, his vow, like, I want to keep it the way it is. We started this by settling in beefs. I don't want to take it to a point where, he's going to start charging people to come watch the fights, and people got to pay for medical. It's not his say so if people pay for the medical because the state's going to require it. But if he was to go sanctioned, he would have to have people go get the medical stuff and get blood work and all that stuff. So I think it's kind of cool that he's had the opportunity to be sanctioned, but he's like, nah, I'm good. I want to keep it the way it is. And who's to say maybe one of the branches, or maybe he might have a spinoff where it's sanctioned, and this is like the elite of street beef, where the guys like Beach, Baby Hulk, Asian Sensation, the guys who have like 6 or 8, 12 MMA fights, where it's like, hey, you guys aren't selling any beef. We're gonna keep you in this one, but everybody who's got a problem, you come here and you settle your beef.
I asked Scarface his favorite street beef of all time. Is there anyone that stands out for you as your favorite that you've watched or you broke down?
I think it's the Penguin versus the Penguin versus the Panther, where homeboy, his name's Jay Heron, I believe. He runs across there and he starts beating him up, and the guy just lets him hit him 5 times, and he goes, man, that shit didn't hurt, and they start fighting. That's probably my favorite one.
Yeah, I would say my favorite character is definitely Death Sentence. Probably my favorite recent one is when Old Head went against Texas, because I had not seen Old Head before, so when I watched it, I was like, how the fuck do you just knock this dude out? Much younger, bigger dude. He's I believe they said Old Head's 51 years old, so if you have not seen that, we broke it down, and also you could take a look at the Streetbeefs YouTube. It's one of their most viral recent ones they've done, so I love that one. But like I said, it's not as much about, of course, these aren't going to be the fights. You're not going to see like a Islam Makhachev versus Alexander Volkanovski type chess match. It's just these great stories and dudes who have massive balls. It's easy to fight someone if you have years and years of combat sports experience. It's another thing if you're just settling a beef and you're doing it on camera. Like anyone who's got in a fight in their lives with anyone, imagine doing that with, potentially millions of people watching. So it takes a lot of guts, and that's personally my favorite aspect of street beefs.
Yeah, and I think the thing where he says that they don't disclose like the beef, what caused the beef, because homeboy said, oh, he slept with his wife, and then after the beef settled, the guy over here goes, he still slept with your wife, and the beef continues. So that's pretty cool about it. And I agree with you. Like, it's random people fighting, and it's actually enjoyable. It's great comedy, right? And I'll always hold street beef close to my heart, because if it wasn't for them, I don't think I would be where I'm at today breaking down fights. Because before you guys, when I first started streaming on Twitch, it was all gaming. Then when I jumped to YouTube, it was still gaming. The channel wasn't really growing. Then once I started breaking down street beef before I brought Michael on, I grew the channel to like 250,000 subscribers. And then that's when I was, okay, there seems to be something here. That's when I brought Michael on. Then Michael kind of convinced me to start breaking down all fights: UFC, PFL, Bellator, Ryzen, One Championship, even boxing. And now look at the channel, it's at 631,000 at the time of filming it. So thank you guys so much for supporting us, and shout out to Street Beef for giving us the opportunity to break down their fights and not red flagging us or copyright striking us. We appreciate that. And man, Michael, I think that was a good episode with Scar, man.
No, we got to make it out there, and I'm telling you, will happen one day. We'll go there. We'll see some fights. I'd love for you to maybe like officiate one day, something like that. But we need to make sure we get the permission from One Championship and all that stuff. But I would love to just, the energy seems amazing. I know they have done a little bit more in MMA gyms and stuff like that, but I want to do the old school street beef outside.
You want to be in the scrapyard. Yeah. You want to be Satan's backyard.
No, the cage and just all of that. That's what I want to do. So I think one day we'll make it happen. And I'm
gonna get you in there. You're 1-0. You're undefeated as a boxer. We'll get you a boxing match.
We need to get the guy that I fought in Thailand and fly him out. I'm not sure where that guy lives, but I'm pretty sure he said he was from New Zealand, I believe. So we'll maybe.
Yeah, but he was way bigger than you. We'll get you somebody who's closer to your size.
Yeah, he was like 190 or something. But no,
exactly. We'll get you guys
do the
like
rematch, because that's
145,
a beef settled. I think I won that fight. That's bullshit decision by that Thai. He must have paid off that Thai ref. So we'll.
Hey, you still got a little medal. You got a little medal from it. Why are you upset about it?
Yeah, it's true. I don't have it here right now, but I want to go. But if I go Street Beef, do they have any? No, they do have titles and stuff with Street Beef, right?
Yeah, they have titles. You got to earn that,
yeah.
Michael. You can't just get there's hand-me-down prizes. You got to earn that one.
Yeah.
Maybe you work your way up to it. We'll see.
Maybe Meaver. No, I would never fight Death Sentence. I was about to say Meaver's Death Sentence, but I couldn't do it.
I don't know. He might be able to beat you. You might be careful,
I'm scared of Death Sentence. I'm not gonna, it's getting 2 seconds. He's gonna finish it. I'm not. I don't want that smoke at all. Please, Death Sentence.
I love it. Well, all right, ladies and gentlemen, I hope you enjoyed this episode of the MightyCast and the Mighty Recap. As always, I am your host, Demetrious Johnson, and as my co-host, Michael Wandsworth. Shout out to our guest, Scar, the creator of Street Beef. If you guys enjoyed this, make sure you leave a like, subscribe. Also, hit the bell to go live, and we will see you guys at the next episode.